It seems like every AAA publisher is dipping back into the archives this year. Capcom has the Capcom Arcade, Sega just put out the Sonic Origins collection, and Namco is not only bringing back Pac-Man World, but they're bringing back Klonoa too. The classic Namco platformer was originally released back on the PS1 and its sequel later coming out on the PS2. While many will recognize the character, the series didn't sell all that well compared to their other main franchises, and thus has laid dormant since 2008 with the Wii remake of the first game. Now Namco is testing the waters for a possible series revival with a remaster of both Klonoa 1 and 2. Both games start a lovable rabbit, cat, dog creature named Klonoa, who has the power to enter dreams and bring them back to balance from the torment of these ghoulish nightmares. Along the way, he teams up with the residents of these worlds who battle against the nightmares being spread around their homes. Like most 2D platformers from this era, the story isn't too impactful, but I will give it credit for actually making an effort to have one. Namco put a lot more effort into having a story at all, with villains that feel ripped out of a Saturday morning cartoon show. Meaning it's mostly childish and peppy, the series does go to some sad and darker parts that resonated with me a lot when I first played this on PS1 and PS2. Nevertheless, while you may not be as impressed now, especially if you're playing it for the first time, I think those with an open mind will come to appreciate where the story takes you, even if it doesn't flawlessly connect the two games. Klonoa's gameplay is rather simple. Our lovable furball can only really walk and fire his wind ring, and that's about it. Instead of gaining new powers or earning power-ups, Klonoa uses his surroundings, including the enemies around him, to navigate around obstacles. You can pick up an enemy, for example, and throw them to break down an obstacle, or collect a collectible item just out of reach. Furthermore, you can sacrifice the enemy you picked up to perform a higher jump, reaching a platform just a tad too far. There's a heavy reliance on this that does change up a bit in the later levels with enemies that explode or color-coded enemies that open specific paths. Looking back at it, it was a clever mechanic, but one that feels a bit shallow in modern times. I would have loved to see Klonoa get more powers or expand upon his arsenal. There is a reason behind his limited powers though. The gameplay is more level driven as opposed to character driven. You see, instead of fighting enemies, you're really more just using them to solve puzzles in these linear levels that rotate on the Z-axis to give this 3D feel. It's a clever way of making the 2D platformer feel more like a 3D one. It's almost like Klonoa walked so Yoshi's Woolly World could run. As the campaign moves forward, these levels introduce a bit more complexity with some backtracking, collecting keys, new enemies that do flesh out the gameplay, but not to the extent that keeps it from feeling simple. Regardless, I do think the about 10-hour runtime per title is paced well enough to the point that neither game felt like it overstayed its welcome. The main appeal with this collection, outside of replaying this classic on a modern platform, is the newly remastered visuals. The original Klonoa used a sprite-based system that mimicked a 3D look on PS1, while the sequel used full 3D models for its visuals. With this new collection, the first game has been upgraded to better match the visuals of the sequel, also now fully in 3D. In fact, it appears to be a remaster of the Wii's 2008 remake of Klonoa, so in that aspect, it's a remaster of a remake. Klonoa 2 on the other hand ditched its cel-shaded look. There are no longer black line strokes on characters, and generally speaking, the environments look a lot more vibrant and saturated in color. I like this new look, especially when playing on the OLED Switch where the colors really popped. On PS5 and Xbox Series X, you can expect a 4K 60fps performance that pretty much is flawless across the board. Unfortunately, that isn't present on the Switch version that targets 1080p 60 in dock mode and 720p 60 in handheld mode. On average, the frame rate hovers around 50 to the mid-50s in both modes, causing a bit of awkward frame pacing. It's not unplayable on the Switch, but it is noticeably not up to par with the Xbox and the PlayStation versions, beyond the change in resolution. Hopefully some optimization patches can fix it, but for the time being, maybe hold off on the Switch version. Klonoa has some of the best music in any 2D platformer. The windmill song is iconic, and still invigorates the spark in me when I hear it. Namco even brought back the TV spot commercial from the original Japanese commercial, and it's just as catchy. The music is cheerful, delightful, and matches the happy-go-lucky backdrop ever present in the dreamscape. Unfortunately, in order to hear the music outside of the game, you'll need to buy the soundtrack DLC separately from this already $40 game. Honestly, it already feels a bit egregious to charge $40 for a simple 2-pack remaster like this, but then to add another $20 DLC for concept art and music, and what should be a celebration of the series in the first place, it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Don't get me wrong, the music and the sound design in Klonoa continue to be charming. The way this was executed though, just feels plain greedy. The Klonoa Phantasy Series is a nice collection of the 2 core games in the series, perfect for anyone wanting to see what all the fuss about Klonoa was. For fans of the series, it's a solid way of revisiting these games, especially the first game that sees the most improvement between the two. However, its performance hiccups on Switch, the price tag for the game, along with some pretty greedy DLC, make this collection a harder pill to swallow. I personally would recommend waiting on a sale and a patch specifically for the Switch version, but if you're eager to just replay these already, it's a good way of experiencing these for the first time or the 100th time.